seen me with my head high or if you seen me smiling, it's because I know at the end of the day, through Jesus Christ, the Most High will always give you the actual judgment.
Cash Out seemed confident he was being falsely accused during his sentencing, and for a slight second, we almost fell for his BS. But the moment the judge delivered the sentence, the rapper completely went crazy and paid the price immediately. I've got all the details. Let's get into it. The outburst that shook the courtroom. The courtroom wasn't ready. The judge wasn't ready. And nobody could have expected what happened when rapper Cash Out stood up, looked the judge dead in the eye, and unleashed a fiery, furious rant that left the entire courtroom stunned. What you're about to witness isn't just another rapper facing a life sentence. It's the breakdown of a man who believes he was betrayed by the very system he once thought he could manipulate. When Cash Out, real name John Michael Hakey Gibson, spoke to the court, he didn't just defend himself. He attacked the credibility of the prosecution, the jury, and even the moral authority of the court itself.
The jury, and even the moral authority of the court itself.
I know it's typical for a person to come up here and, show remorse to, crimes that they have done, but I can only show remorse to the people that I know that was in this trial. Not remorse on behalf of like I did anything to them.
Those were not the words of a man begging for mercy. They were the opening shots in a verbal assault on the entire legal process. Perhaps the most chilling part is that Cash Out isn't apologizing. He's accusing others of lying, manipulating the system, and using him as a scapegoat. His defiance may go down as one of the most disturbing moments in modern hip-hop legal history. If you're wondering how he got here, Cash Out, born John Michael Hakey Gibson on August 15th, 1990, grew up between Columbus, Georgia, and Atlanta's toughest neighborhoods. As a kid, he fell in love with music by sneaking into local studios and watching mixtapes by Outkast, T.I., and Gucci Mane. By his late teens, he was recording late at night, teaching himself to rap over rattling 808s and putting raw Atlanta street stories to auto-tune melodies. Around 2009, he hustled self-press CDs on street corners and dropped early tapes like Dope Boy Boots and Fully Tape Online. Then in late 2011, Cashing Out hit Atlanta radio. Its spare hypnotic hook propelled him straight to an Epic Records deal and platinum status by early 2012. Suddenly, he was sharing stages with Future in 2 Chainz, fueling a string of gritty mixtapes and club bangers. But as his career soared, trouble crept in. Legal run-ins and financial disputes piled up until he was accused of leading a human trafficking operation in Atlanta, facing charges of rape, racketeering, trafficking, and unlawfully detaining women. As the judge prepared to hand down the sentence, Cash Out did the unthinkable. Instead of quiet, remorseful plea, he doubled down on his innocence. He invoked the Bible. He compared himself to prophets. He called the victims liars. And worst of all, he subtly accused the system of being part of a racist, manipulative agenda. Interview 250-304. This wasn't a defense. It was a direct challenge. Cash Out wasn't begging for leniency. He was accusing the legal system of spiritual failure. He went on to claim that every woman involved in the case was lying, that they left and came back willingly, that no one was ever forced, and that the entire trial was built on coerced testimony from people pressured to take plea deals.
Manipulative agenda.
Jesus was falsely accused. A lot of the prophets were falsely accused. So if you seen me with my head high or if you seen me smiling, it's because I know at the Most High will always give you the actual.
But prosecutors say they have surveillance, wiretaps, and multiple victims, some of whom were allegedly beaten, threatened, and trafficked for months on end. They say Cash Out was a ringleader directing operations, keeping profits, and enlisting his own mother to help funnel the money. His attorney asked for 30 years, arguing that the state's original offer was 25, a plea deal that Cash Out rejected because he wanted his day in court. Instead of 25 years, he got life, and on top of that, 70 more years stacked behind it. Let that sink in. His own legal team warned him, take the deal, but Cash Out believed he could win. Now, his fall from grace is one of the most brutal in recent memory. Maybe the most heartbreaking part. His mother is also behind bars. His mother was sentenced to 30 years for her alleged role in the trafficking ring. According to court records, She was allegedly helping to manage the women, transport them, and even handle some of the finances. This wasn't just a son going down. It was an entire family operation collapsing in disgrace. As rapper Turk reacted online, it was clear the culture didn't see this coming.
It was forced. Nothing was coerced. If you notice before this trial, no woman can say anything about that.
That's the part that shook the hip-hop community. How could it get this dark? There are two very different narratives here, and you're about to see the horrifying disconnect between them. On one hand, Cash Out swears he's innocent, claiming that he never coerced anyone, never forced anyone, and that this entire case was built on lies and manipulation. On the other, victims testified in brutal detail about being trafficked, raped, and emotionally destroyed by a man they once thought cared for them. So, what happens when a rapper once held his A? Southern Star goes to trial and loses everything, including his family, his freedom, and his legacy. You get a courtroom meltdown for the ages. The trial files and devastating evidence. This is where the lies unravel, where every hidden message, every encrypted DM, every off-the-record whisper became evidence. While Cash Out stood in front of the judge preaching about innocence, victimhood, and spiritual persecution, the DA was quietly unloading one of the most devastating evidence folders in Georgia courtroom history. RICO charges, wiretaps, witness statements, physical evidence, bank transfers, the works. Once the prosecution began peeling back the layers, what they found was more sinister than anyone expected. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a playbook, a strategy, a well-oiled machine of exploitation and profit. And Cash Out, they claimed, was at the top. John Michael Hakey Gibson became a household name after the 2012 hit Cashing Out exploded on the charts. He was flashy, charismatic, and smooth-talking. But prosecutors say he used that same charm to lure vulnerable women into a dark, manipulative lifestyle. According to court filings, Cash Out ran a trafficking ring that spanned multiple counties across Georgia with operations rooted in the Fulton Industrial Boulevard corridor, an area long associated with underground activity. The government brought RICO charges. That's not just a fancy legal term. It's a tool originally designed to take down the mafia, and now it was being used against a rapper. They alleged Cash Out controlled a network of women under the guise of dating or escort work. He used coercion, manipulation, and control, psychological and financial, to keep them from leaving. Those who did try to leave were allegedly threatened or blackmailed. And worst of all, some women were allegedly assaulted when they resisted. According to testimony, one of the victims claimed she was groomed by Cash Out at just 17 years old. Prosecutors alleged she was later forced into sex work, controlled by financial dependence, and intimidated into silence.
To go down with your mama, it's messed up, bro.
The ring wasn't just personal. It was organized, involving multiple locations, rented apartments, and transportation plans. According to court documents, Cash Out's mother played a direct role in coordinating some of the activities. She wasn't just complicit. She was convicted. But here's what the prosecution says nailed the case. A series of surveillance videos, phone calls from jail, Instagram DMs, and bank statements, all tracing back to Cash Out. The lifestyle he flaunted online became evidence in court. One particularly damaging moment came when a recorded call between Cash Out and one of the alleged victims showed him coaching her on what to say if questioned. The prosecution used that tape to claim witness tampering. Cash Out rejected a 25-year plea deal before the trial began. He wanted his day in court, a fatal mistake, according to many legal experts. Instead, he got life and 70 more years on top. In the moments leading up to sentencing, Cash Out delivered one of the most unhinged, defiant courtroom addresses ever seen. He didn't just deny the allegations. He claimed spiritual persecution.
Given jail sentences on several other charges that were made concurrent, registering as a sex offender, and
in another bizarre turn, he claimed that none of the women ever accused him before the indictment, that everything changed only after prosecutors got involved.
You seen me with my head high, or if you seen me smiling, it's because I know at the end of the day, through Jesus Christ, the Most High will always give you the actual judgment.
But the court wasn't buying it. especially after prosecutors played jailhouse calls where Cash Out allegedly mocked the victims, suggested they were lying for leverage, and even compared himself to martyrs. This wasn't just a defense strategy. It became a psychological profile. Prosecutors described him as a master manipulator who played victim in public, but wielded control behind closed doors. Even rapper Turk, who tried to show support in his reaction video, couldn't fully defend the charges.
No woman can say anything about me for this indictment. No woman can say anything about
the social stigma, the danger inside prison, the complete loss of reputation. Cash Out wasn't just convicted, he was erased. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Cash Out supporters, including some in the rap community, claimed this was a targeted takedown. Some believe Cash Out was punished more harshly because of his image, his background, and the nature of his music. They argue that the system was waiting for a reason to bury him. There are whispers, unproven but persistent, that undercover surveillance began years before any formal indictment, that the police were watching, tracking, and building a case slowly, waiting until the RICO charges could stick. Some believe this wasn't justice. It was a setup. Even Cash Out alluded to this theory in his final statement.
Especially with that charge. When you are a chamo and you have a R charge, you know what I'm saying? Those are the two things that you don't want to go to jail for.
But no matter which side you're on, one thing is clear. This case wasn't about music. It was about power. The power to control, the power to exploit, the power to walk away while others took the fall. And now that power is gone. The aftermath and a dark pattern in hip-hop. The music is dead. The name is stained. The man is locked away. But what if the most disturbing part of this entire saga isn't what was said in court? It's what was never allowed to be said at all. Beyond the headlines, beyond the verdict, beyond that viral courtroom outburst, there are still questions that have never been answered. Victims who never took the stand, and a trail of psychological and emotional destruction that continues to unfold far beyond the courtroom. Sentenced to life in prison plus 70 years, Cash Out is currently being held in a Georgia state facility under conditions that are far from ordinary. Sources close to the correctional system say he's now being housed in protective custody due to the nature of his charges. In prison, sex offenders are considered the lowest of the low. Among them, those convicted of sex trafficking, especially involving manipulation, coercion, or young victims, are often targeted by other inmates. Inmates don't forget charges like cash outs. Many see it as their mission to make sure that men with those crimes never live in peace behind bars. He's now in a segregated unit, monitored around the clock. And sources suggest he's already had at least one incident involving other inmates threatening him. Turk's warning wasn't just words. It was prophecy.
I feel like some people can get bullied into a situation that they really don't want to. They don't really want to do. I'm sitting here just holding my head high and just, feeling that one day the truth will come out.
But no matter which side you're on, one thing is clear.
While Cash Out's physical safety is being protected, his reputation is beyond saving. There's now an entire movement of survivors, activists, and advocates who see his trial as a symbol, not just of one man's actions, but of how common this kind of manipulation is in the entertainment industry. Some of the women who were not part of the trial, but allegedly came forward during the investigation, claimed they were never called to testify. Their stories were allegedly rejected by the prosecution as not necessary for conviction. But that doesn't mean they weren't real. A leaked statement from one woman obtained by local advocates claimed she had known Cash Out since 2013 and that he slowly cut her off from family, controlled her finances, and promised music career help in exchange for obedience. Another claimed that Cash Out had her tattoo his initials on her body as a loyalty test, a tactic known in psychological coercion circles as branding. None of these women made it to the stand, but their allegations, even if unofficial, paint a terrifying picture of how deep the grooming allegedly went. And it raises a question. Why weren't they heard? Court documents show Cash Out's mother was allegedly responsible for transporting the women, booking locations, and helping collect payments. Phone records reveal dozens of messages between her and other women discussing schedules, earnings, and movements. She wasn't a passive enabler. She was part of the machine. Her 30-year sentence, Some legal experts believe it was a negotiated silence, a plea deal to prevent her from testifying and possibly exposing deeper layers of the ring. But Cash Out isn't alone. He's just the latest name on a long and growing list of hip-hop artists facing RICO indictments and serious federal charges. Young Thug, 6 Ice 9, Casanova, YF Lucci, the list goes on. This is more than a coincidence. It's a trend. Prosecutors are increasingly treating rappers like organized crime figures, watching their lyrics, monitoring their movements, and using RICO laws to target entire crews at once. Cash Out's case was one of the earliest where the RICO framework was used to prosecute alleged sex trafficking instead of drugs or gun charges. If this becomes a precedent, the music industry will never be the same. Critics argue that it sets a dangerous precedent, one where rappers are held legally accountable for the behavior of their crews, even without direct involvement. But in Cash Out's case, they had the receipts, the texts, the video calls, the money trail, and it all came crashing down. The girls and women at the center of this case are ghosts now, disappeared from public view. No interviews, no statements, no TikToks, just silence. Some reportedly fled the state. Others are said to be in protective housing. One was rumored to attempt self-harm shortly after testifying, though that report remains unverified. None of them were paid. None were compensated. Most of them, anonymous, even in court records, walked away with nothing. For those still skeptical, those who claim Cash Out was set up, consider this. If this was a conspiracy, why would so many women from different cities with no known connection come forward with such similar stories? Why would multiple video calls obtained from jail show Cash Out trying to calm or coach the same women prosecutors say were being trafficked? Why would his own mother accept a 30-year plea deal rather than fight the case? Why did he say this?
Somebody gonna want to see him for that charge, bro. You got the charge, so watch your back.
While Cash Out's
Interview 1400 hours, 1409. That's not the voice of innocence. That's the voice of a man who still doesn't believe he did anything wrong. Cash Out's downfall wasn't isolated. He wasn't the first, and he definitely won't be the last. If you've been paying attention to rap game over the past 10 years, you'll see a disturbing pattern. A pattern of artists who rise to the charts, flaunt wealth, power, and dominance, then spiral into legal chaos involving drugs, guns, sex trafficking, and in some cases, murder. Let's recap the most obvious. Kelly's situation is dire as he serves a 31-year prison sentence at the Federal Correctional Institution, Butner Medium 1, in North Carolina for sex-related crimes, including child pornography and sex trafficking.
And I just wanted to address the court and give my perspective on in the judgment that I felt that the jurors gave us was not the correct judge.
His projected release date is December 21st, 2045, when he'll be 79 years old. Kelly's lawyers have made alarming claims about his safety within the prison system. They allege that prison officials have conspired to have him killed by an inmate, specifically a member of the Aryan Brotherhood gang. According to his lawyers, a terminally ill inmate, Mikio Glenn Stein, was approached by authorities and offered freedom in exchange for carrying out the hit. However, instead of following through on the plan, Steiner reportedly warned Kelly about the plot. In response to these allegations, Kelly's legal team has filed an emergency motion for his immediate release from prison, citing the alleged murder plot and claiming that his life is in danger. They've also requested home detention as a safer alternative. However, a federal judge has denied Kelly's emergency motion, stating that he hasn't demonstrated a legal basis for court's jurisdiction. The judge also noted that Kelly's claims aren't backed up by evidence. The situation took a dramatic turn when Kelly was recently hospitalized after allegedly overdosing on prescription medication given to him by prison staff. His lawyers claimed this was a deliberate attempt to harm him, while authorities say it was routine medical care. This incident has further fueled Kelly's lawyers' claims that their client's life is in danger. Kelly's lawyers are continuing to fight for his release and have even called on President Trump to intervene. However, with the judge's recent denial, it's unclear what the next steps will be. Kelly's case has sparked widespread debate, with some fans supporting him and others condemning his actions. While Cash Out was battling trafficking charges, 6ix9ine was embroiled in a federal RICO indictment of his own. Unlike Cash Out, 6ix9ine flipped. He cooperated with the feds, testified against his own crew, and received a drastically reduced sentence. He served just 2 years and walked out of prison under federal protection. While he may be enjoying relative safety now, he will most likely end up in a ditch if those he snitched on ever get a hold of him. Cash Out never snitched, but is still serving life with the knowledge that his mother will most likely spend the rest of her prime in jail. Young Thug and over 28 alleged associates were indicted under Georgia's RICO law, accused of operating a violent street gang under the cover of a record label called YSL. While the crimes differ, one trafficking, the other violence, the legal tools used are the same. RICO, in both cases, art was used as evidence. In both cases, celebrity was not a shield. It was an accelerant. When you look at these cases side by side, a few terrifying truths emerge. Power plus fame creates the illusion of invincibility. Misogyny, manipulation, and mental control are recurring tools, not accidents. RICO is now a permanent weapon in the state's war on rap, and public reaction is disturbingly inconsistent, influenced more by celebrity than the actual crimes. While we take a trip down memory lane, we can't forget about another recent case, which is the Diddy case. The trial of Sean Diddy Combs has been one of the most highly publicized cases in recent years, captivating the attention of fans, critics, and the media alike. Here's a comprehensive overview of the case from the beginning to the end. Diddy faced 5 charges, including racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The indictment alleged that he used manipulation, threats, and coercion to control women and others around him, leveraging his power to fulfill his sexual desires and safeguard his reputation. The trial began on May 5th, 2025 at the Daniel Patrick Moen U.S. Courthouse in New York City. The prosecution presented numerous witnesses, including Diddy's former partner, Cassie Ventura, who accused him of physical and emotional abuse during their decade-long relationship. Other witnesses testified about Diddy's alleged involvement in freak-off parties where women were coerced into sexual activities. Cassie Ventura testified about being pressured into freak-off parties where she was encouraged to sleep with hired male escorts. She described the encounters as increasingly fueled by drugs and coercion. A security guard from a hotel where Diddy was allegedly seen physically assaulting Ventura in 2016 testified about the incident. Other witnesses described Diddy's alleged abuse of power and control over women, including forcing them into prostitution. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury delivered a mixed verdict. Diddy was found guilty of 2 counts of transportation for prostitution, but acquitted of more serious charges of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. The guilty verdicts carry a potential prison sentence of up to 10 years. Diddy's sentencing hearing is expected to be scheduled within the next 2 months. His defense team has vowed to appeal the guilty verdicts, arguing that the prosecution failed to prove intent beyond reasonable doubt. Everyone is waiting desperately to see yet another music world mogul who abused his power getting the punishment he deserves. The outcome of this trial has significant implications for Diddy's legacy and public image. As a figure who has influenced trends and culture for decades, the verdict will undoubtedly shape his standing in the entertainment world and beyond. Cash Out is serving life. R. Kelly's empire is destroyed. 6ix9ine is free, but exiled. Young Thug is still fighting, and Diddy will be sentenced in a short time. The pattern continues. A man once cashing out is now cashed out. A family is destroyed. A genre is under surveillance. A city is haunted. The trial is over, but the damage isn't. The victims, the families, the culture all bear the scars of this case. The fall of Cash Out isn't just another story about a rapper who got caught. It's about a music industry that enables unchecked power, a legal system that's finally responding, but in ways that blur art and evidence, and a culture that still can't decide. Who do we protect, the artist or the audience? If Cash Out is guilty, and the evidence suggests he is, then this case must be remembered not just for what he did, but for how many ignored the signs until it was too late. This wasn't just a man losing his freedom. This was an entire system cracking open, exposing the rot inside. When power goes unchecked, when image outruns accountability, When fame becomes a shield for exploitation, eventually the truth wins, no matter how long it takes. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.